Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Real glad that you could join us again. We're going to be speaking this morning with Dr. Murat Kalayoglu, joining us here as CEO at Cartesian Therapeutics. He's talking about the company's therapy platform called RNA Armory. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Dr. Kalayoglu.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. It's good to be here.
Well, give our listeners a bit of your professional background and talk about how you came to be at Cartesian Therapeutics and what your role there is.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a physician scientist by training. I received my MD and PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. My PhD was on microbiology and immunology. Afterwards, I went and did a residency in ophthalmology at Harvard, and then went and did a research fellowship while at the same time getting an MBA at MIT Sloan. During my time there, I recognized that a career in academic medicine wasn't a good fit for me, and so I teamed up with another sort of colleague and a friend of mine who was also doing residency in ophthalmology. His name is Mike Singer, and he and I ended up starting a couple of companies. The first one was on applying behavioral economics concepts to drive healthy behaviors, such as medication adherence. That was called Health Honors, and it was sold to a company called Healthways, now Tivity Health, in 2009. And then shortly thereafter, we took some observations that we and other colleagues at Harvard had made around a particular set of drugs that are used in glaucoma, and recognized that they had a side effect of reducing fat around the eye. And so we thought, well, we could perhaps take that and make a cream out of it and apply it directly on the skin of patients and achieve topical fat reduction, which is sort of the holy grail in medical aesthetics. So we took that from concept to registration studies before handing it off to a company called Allergan. And then a week later started Cartesian Therapeutics, based on the desire to find potent yet safer therapies that could be applied early on in the treatment paradigm to be able to, in essence, achieve cures or functional cures. And that was motivated out of a desire to originally cure multiple myeloma, of which both my family members as well as Mike's family members have been affected. So it was also right around the time that my younger brother was diagnosed with Hodgkin lymphoma. And so I figured, instead of pursuing a career in medical aesthetics, I probably should be going and focusing on curing cancer and other diseases. So that's what we've been doing since 2016.
Now, I understand that you've got a new cell therapy platform called RNA Armory. Tell me a bit about this platform.
Yeah, so the original idea behind the company was to take a cell therapy, which is potent, as a treatment paradigm, the power of the cell to deliver drugs or to target directly to the site of disease is quite powerful. And so the original idea was to take that potent concept and make it safer, really potent yet safer therapies. And we originally focused on a particular technology called chimeric antigen receptor T cells, CAR T cells, and we licensed some original technology out of the NIH for targeting a particular antigen that's widely expressed and now is recognized to be really a key antigen to target in multiple myeloma. But along the way, as we experimented with engineering cells with RNA, we recognized that we, over the years, developed a core competency around working with RNA and cells and engineering cells with RNA. And we then recognized, boy, if we can do this with one RNA, we can do it with multiple RNAs. And we can create a cell that, in essence, serves as both the factory for producing as well as the vehicle for delivering not just one therapeutic, but multiple therapeutics right to the site of disease to hit that disease at multiple mechanisms simultaneously. So the overarching vision then became to RNA engineer any cell to target to any tissue, any combination of therapies. It became really a combination therapy technology, and the platform that was formed as a result of that evolution, we coined the term RNA Armory around.
Using mRNA allows your company to overcome some of the limitations that are associated with conventional DNA cell engineering. Explain that a bit.
Sure. Yeah. So 98+% of what you see in cell therapy is engineered cells at the DNA level to make irreversible changes. That's why we call it conventional cell therapy, because it's so widely spread. The issue around that is when you make permanent changes to the cell and administer the cell in the body, and the cell recognizes this target and becomes activated and begins to proliferate, every daughter cell looks genetically identical to the parent cell, right? So, for example, if the original cell is carrying 100 molecules on its surface, and then that cell divides upon encountering its antigen and becoming activated, then the daughter cell now also has 100 molecules on the surface, and the parent cell also has 100 molecules on the surface, and then another division means you have 4 cells that have 100 molecules, et cetera. So you have this perpetuating effect because genetically all these cells are identical because they're tinkered at the DNA level. The problem with that is that often these cells, which are administered at a subtherapeutic dose, are expected to get to a therapeutic window, just stay there. But the cell doesn't know to do that. It'll just keep proliferating and cross into the toxicity window, where you get both short-term toxicities. For example, with CAR T cells, you get cytokine release syndrome, neurotoxicity, increased infection risk, as well as long-term risk. For example, risk of transformation, the cell actually turning into, a cancer cell itself, which, if you sort of follow the news in this area, you read about this happening more and more as more of these cells come to fruition. And then also long-term immunogenicity risk, also more infection risk long-term. So this is fine for treating patients that really have absolutely no options left on the table, treatment refractory, relapse refractory patients that are often advanced cancer patients. But that safety profile, that doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about taking cell therapy beyond advanced cancers into frontline cancers, as well as beyond oncology into other diseases, autoimmune disease, neurology diseases, and respiratory diseases, et cetera. So our approach is to use RNA instead of DNA to make time control changes to confer upon cells drug-like pharmacokinetics, where we can control the exposure and through repeat dosing achieve benefit at a therapeutic window without having these cells go into the toxicity window. So it's a safer way to do this. Now we can move into frontline cancers, and then we can also move beyond oncology and into other diseases. It also has the added advantage of being much more cost-effective relative to engineering the cells at the DNA level. And it also has the advantage of being able to engineer into a given cell multiple combinations. Again, this is sort of the rationale behind the RNA Armory platform.
Talk briefly about a couple of the assets that you have currently in trials.
Yeah, sure. So ultimately, we can go after diseases with cell therapy that I think are difficult to do so with the conventional cell therapy. So, for example, we have the first RNA-engineered cell therapy in an autoimmune disease. It's called Descartes 8, and it's treating an autoimmune neurological disorder called generalized myasthenia gravis. We have a program that's called Descartes 11 that is treating patients with newly diagnosed multiple myeloma. We have a program called Descartes 30 that is engineering cells with 2 different therapeutics that are secreted that is targeting a key driver in the pathogenesis of acute respiratory distress syndrome and COVID-19. And that's called Descartes 30. These are, we're in essence engineering cells, and in various types of cells, not just one type of cell, various types of cells, both autologous cells as well as off-the-shelf allogeneic cells. And we pick the right cell for the job and pick the right cell for the right indication.
Well, give our listeners a website where we can learn more about your company and about some of the developments that are going on there.
Yeah, sure. So you can learn more about us at www.cartesiantherapeutics.com. All one word, cartesiantherapeutics.com.
Well, I appreciate you joining us here on Health Professional Radio. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download it at SoundCloud, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.